Have you ever made a snap judgment about someone? I mean, of course you have, right? We all do. Well, today, we're going to unpack the hidden psychology behind why our brains jump to conclusions so fast and how we decide who's to blame when things go wrong. Let's get into it. Okay, to start things off, I want you to imagine a scene that I think we've all been in. It's that moment of pure white knuckle frustration. So you're just driving along, maybe listening to music, minding your own business, and then bam, some car just swerves right into your lane. No signal, no warning, nothing. You have to slam on the brakes and your heart is just pounding in your chest. Now, be honest with yourself. What's the very first word that pops into your head about that driver? Is it something like reckless, inconsiderate, or maybe something a little less polite? And that immediate reaction, that's exactly what we're talking about today. Our brains are basically hardwired to make these instant assessments. We create a whole story to explain why someone did what they did, all in a fraction of a second. But the real question is, why do we do it? And is that first story we tell ourselves even the right one? See, at the core of every single one of these judgments, there's a choice our brain has to make. We're deciding whether to blame the person themselves or to blame the situation they're in. And there's actually a name for this. It's called attribution theory. It's the whole framework that psychologists use to understand how we explain behavior, not just other people's, but our own too. We're always trying to figure out, did they do that because of who they are or because of what's happening to them? So you can think of it like our brain comes to a fork in the road. One path is what we call a dispositional attribution. That's when we blame their personality. That driver is just a bad person. The other path is a situational attribution, where we blame the circumstances. Maybe they're in a huge hurry, rushing to the hospital. Two totally different stories, right? Let's try another one. Imagine a student who is always late for class. The dispositional view is the easy one. They're lazy, they're irresponsible. But the situational view makes us ask some different questions. Do they have a really long bus ride? Do they have to get their younger siblings ready for school first? Suddenly, the explanation completely changes how we see them. So, if there are two paths, why does it feel like we so often just automatically take the first one, blaming the person? Well, it's because our brain absolutely loves shortcuts. And a lot of the time, those shortcuts are pretty biased. And this brings us to the first big one, a huge mental glitch called the fundamental attribution error. This is basically our brain's default setting. We have a tendency to overestimate how much of someone's behavior is because of their personality and totally underestimate the power of the situation. So that driver who cut you off, our brain immediately goes to bad character, not bad context. But wait, it gets even more interesting. Because when it comes to ourselves, we have a completely different rulebook. This is called the actor-observer bias. When other people mess up, it's their personality. But when we mess up, well, that's definitely because of the situation. Just think about a group project in school. If I'm the one who's not pulling my weight, it's because I'm totally slammed with other classes and I have personal stuff going on, a perfect situational excuse. But if my teammate isn't contributing, my brain just leaps to a dispositional conclusion. They must be lazy or they just don't care. It's because we're the actor in our own movie, we see all the external pressures. But for everyone else, we're just an observer, and their personality seems like the most obvious cause. And as if that wasn't enough, our brains have another little trick to protect our egos. It's called the self-serving bias. And this one is all about taking all the credit and passing off all the blame. It feels really good, but it can definitely warp how we see reality. I mean, look at how this plays out with something like test scores. If I get an A on the exam, well, that's because I'm smart and I studied really hard. That's all me. But if I fail that same test, oh no. Suddenly it's the teacher's fault, the instructions were confusing, the room was too loud, anything but me. Success is all personal, failure is all situational. Now, these patterns, these little shortcuts, they aren't just one-off things. Over time, they actually start to build up and form a consistent way that we look at the entire world. And psychologists call this our explanatory style. Your explanatory style is really your go-to habit for making sense of everything that happens, the good and the bad. When something goes wrong, do you see it as a reflection of who you are, or is it just a temporary roadblock? How you answer that question day in and day out has a huge impact on your life. Let's look back at that failed test. Someone with an optimistic style would see it as a specific, temporary problem they can fix. Okay, I didn't study the right stuff, but I can do better next time. But someone with a pessimistic style might see it as a personal, permanent flaw. I'm just bad at this, and that's never going to change. One mindset leads to action, the other, well, it leads to just giving up. And this brings us to our final and maybe most important idea. It really all comes down to who you believe is holding the pen, writing the story of your life. This is something called your locus of control. If you have an internal locus of control, you believe that you are in charge of your own destiny. An athlete who wins a championship, they credit their own dedication. But if you have an external locus of control, you believe outside forces are running the show. A player who loses the game blames the terrible refs, the bad weather, anything and everything but their own performance. So, what's the big takeaway here? It's this. Our brain's automatic judgments, those snap reactions, all those mental shortcuts, they're just the first draft of the story. They're designed by evolution to be fast, not necessarily to be fair or accurate. But understanding these biases, that gives us the power to pause, to take a breath, and to rewrite that story. So the next time somebody cuts you off in traffic or a coworker misses a deadline, I want you to just ask yourself this one question. Are you going to stop at that first thought and only see a flawed character? Or are you going to challenge that mental shortcut and try to see the unseen circumstance? The choice really is yours.